But we got you on to talk about the gun control and this latest horror in the US. Let's just get a bit of an update on the latest here from Sky News UK.
There are new faces, fresh heartbreak, but this is a familiar grief, a fact of life in America. This is the shooter, Salvador Ramos. He bought the guns on his 18th birthday. He crashed his car before entering the school around midday, moving between multiple classrooms until he was shot dead by a police officer. Uvalde, Texas is now the scene of the deadliest primary school shooting since Sandy Hook in 2012. Many believed that massacre of 6- and 7-year-olds would change everything. 10 years on, it's changed nothing.
It's just astonishing. Now, John, you're at the pointy end of gun control measures in Australia when you were Deputy Nationals leader in 1996 after Port Arthur, and you've spoken to American Conservatives about this issue. What is the way forward? How can we get some sort of meaningful gun control in the United States?
Well, far be it from me to tell the Americans how to do their own business, but it's obviously deeply tragic. As one who's been predeceased by a child, it is, as President Biden said today, the thing that it really empties you out. It's horrendous. And for it to happen in this way so often is beyond description. There's a couple of comments I'd make. One is that, even though the right to bear arms is so passionately defended in America, and 3 out of 10 own firearms, 60%, I think, of Americans say they know someone who has a firearm, have access to firearms. But the sort of firearms they have access to is such an issue. Remember, back here in Australia, it was the type of firearms as much as the right to own them that we had to look at very, very closely. And these semi-automatics, automatics, just beyond description. And surely they are indefensible in the hands of private citizens.
Surely, sorry to interrupt, isn't that the starting point? Some sort of buyback for those military-grade weapons and a ban on their sale?
Yeah, well, I think this is where, what we did in Australia, I think, was so well constructed, if I may say so. There was a buyback, there was compensation, there were incentives, as we recognised there was an emerging gun culture. America's got a full-blown one. We had an emerging one in some of the suburbs, probably more than even regional Australia, if I'm honest about it. And the other thing is to go after the weapons that do the most damage, that the most irresponsible people will try and get their hands on first. And it's easiest to mount the case there. But then there's a second set of considerations, Chris, that are so serious. I wonder whether you could do it in Australia today. Why? Because of identity politics. We're more factionalised than ever. You go to America, it's infinitely more factionalised. And so many people feel dispossessed and shut out. And there's something else that we're not talking about. These are all disturbed young men. America has a boy crisis. The number of men in jail in America has gone up 750% since the mid-70s. That's a staggering number. We've got to come to grips with why so many boys are growing up in a dysfunctional environment, into such dysfunctional human beings that they want to hurt other people. That's an aspect that's never talked about, especially by, if I can put it this way, by progressives who think regulation's the answer to everything. It's got to be a holistic approach.
Yeah, you're right, and that leads to all sorts of discussions about father figures and family breakdown and all the rest of it. That is a fascinating insight. Thanks for joining us, John. I really appreciate your time.
Good to be with you, Chris, and with your viewers.
John Anderson there, the former Deputy Prime Minister of this country.